Today's Money Metals Minute brought to you by MoneyMetals.com. Nervous traders sold stocks yesterday and bought precious metals. Tuesday's selling was the seventh and heaviest day of losses for the Dow-Jones. Events in Japan likely drove more of the selling in global markets. The yen rose dramatically and Japanese bonds plummeted. The central bank announced details of a far more limited stimulus package than markets had anticipated. And now here's a special report from Mike Gleason of Money Metals Exchange.
It is my privilege now to welcome in Michael Rivero, founder and editor of WhatReallyHappens.com. Michael is a prolific commentator on geopolitics, financial markets, and many other topics, and also hosts a daily radio show where he comments about it all. Michael, so with presidential politics being front and center until November, does that mean we'll experience a period of peace and quiet on Wall Street leading up to the election as investors await the outcome? I mean, now this certainly doesn't appear to be your typical election, but what are you anticipating there in the markets between now and November?
Well, we're looking at an economy that is showing signs of increasing strain. Deutsche Bank is in trouble. The Italian banks are in trouble. And the pattern from history has always been that during an election year, especially the second half of the election year, the government is going to do everything they can to make the economy look like it's working in order to support the incumbent party, the incumbent candidates. And certainly Obama is well motivated to try and make the economy look good in order to build support for Hillary. But at this point, they may be fighting not just a holding action, it may be a losing battle because there are so many factors out there that are really starting to strain the whole global economic system. It's almost a question of whether it's going to start unraveling before or after the November election. It could happen before, and at that point, it's only going to turn the voters even more firmly away from the establishment and toward Donald Trump. And I think we need to be very clear about something. If the U.S. government had been doing their job correctly for the American people and the nation, if the economy really was sound and was taking care of the nation as a whole rather than simply plundering it, Donald Trump's campaign would have been a footnote because of his very brusque way of addressing the audience. But Donald Trump is a populist reactionary candidate, and his popularity is based on the fact that the American people are tired of business as usual, they're tired of politics as usual, they're tired of the wars, they're tired of all of these bailouts, which are basically the government taking $1 trillion from the American people and giving it to the banks so the banks can loan it back to the American people at interest. They understand that the current establishment is very much in favor of the bankers' interests over and above those of the ordinary citizens. Hillary's selection of Tim Kaine as vice president only firmed up that impression because he's on the record as saying even today he thinks there are far too many regulations on Wall Street. So this election really isn't about Republican versus Democrat or liberal versus conservative. It's basically the American people against that 1% establishment of money junkies and their cronies in Washington, D.C. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's going to be very chaotic between now and November.
Switching gears here a bit, gold and silver prices surged along with bond prices following Wednesday's Fed announcement. This despite Janet Yellen once again assuring everyone that even though the FOMC isn't moving to withdraw stimulus yet, the economy is getting stronger and officials may hike rates soon, maybe even in September. Normally, this sort of job owning will at least drive some sort of short-term move lower in the metals and a sell-off in treasuries, but that's not what we got. What do you think is happening here? Have Fed officials finally lost the remainder of their credibility?
Yeah, I think that's it, and I think most smart investors understand that during an election year, the government and the bankers are going to try and make the economy look good in order to keep the incumbent elected. I don't think it's going to work, first of all, because the Federal Reserve has missed so many predictions and is now seen as the root cause of the problems rather than any kind of a solution. And coupled with that, there are clear indications that the November election, along with Donald Trump potentially winning, if it's not stolen from him, there's a major anti-incumbency fever sweeping the American people right now. And we're seeing a lot of the old guard establishment politicians are now facing major uphill fights for re-election and likely to lose. Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida, John McCain in Arizona, Paul Ryan. All of a sudden, the poll numbers are just shifting against them.
That was Michael Rivero of WhatReallyHappened.com and Mike Gleason at MoneyMetals.com. Live prices at moneymetals.com show gold currently trading at $1,365.75 per ounce and silver at $20.61.